Hi everybody, this is Lisa McClendon, and we're going to do a quick intro to headlines in this video. David Ogilvy, this famous Madison Avenue ad man, made a really trenchant observation that 5 times as many people read the headline as the body copy. Now this was decades ago, and I would guess that in the age of social media, it's probably 50 times as many people read the headline as read the body copy, because we are a bunch of skimmers and scammers when it comes to reading these days. We skim, we scan, we don't read the whole thing, we just scroll through Twitter and look at headlines. So headlines are really, really important. They have a lot of work to do here, okay? Headlines have a lot of work, which means that it's really important for us as editors to get them right. They are everywhere. You will find headlines everywhere. And you may think, oh yeah, I'm not going to work for a newspaper, so why do I need to learn how to write headlines? Well, they're going to show up on your website. You will need them in video and audio. You need headers, you need introductions, you need supers and chirons on TV. Yeah, you do need them in print if you're writing for a newspaper, a magazine, a newsletter, if you're doing brochures, if you're doing all kinds of publications that aren't necessarily a newspaper. You still have to write headlines. You need them for apps. You have to title your stuff. Okay, you have to let people know what they're clicking on. You need them for social media. You've got to have that tweet, that Facebook post, text with your Instagram photo, titles on your snaps, all that kind of stuff. You have to tell people what's going on here. What are we doing here? What happened? Anybody get news alerts? Somebody's got to write those. Those are basically headlines. They're headlines that come to your phone. If you get email newsletters, or if you just write email, the subject line is basically a headline. So this is thinking about summarizing, giving the one takeaway, the main idea for pretty much anything. So you're going to be writing them for a lot of different platforms. Different platforms do need different kinds of headlines. They're in a different context. And so we're just kind of starting this unit, but we're going to move on and we're going to talk a lot about differences among platforms for how you're going to write the headlines. But regardless of where a headline appears, there are some rules that you have to follow no matter what, okay? First off is being accurate. In other words, you have to get the facts right, all right? It has to be right. You have to actually say what happened, and it has to be the right thing that happened, okay? You also need to be correct, and that just means that, the grammar is right, the spelling is right, there aren't any typos, you're not using the wrong affect or effect, that kind of stuff, okay? Because so few people are actually going to click through that headline and read your story, that headline has to not put people off of the story from the beginning. You also need to be clear, all right? Tell them exactly what they're getting. What exactly is the story about? Don't make them guess. Don't make them work to understand what's going on. Don't be opaque about it. Don't be overly wordy. Don't be confusing. Make it as clear as you possibly can. And this one might be a new one for you. You have to have a verb, okay? Because a headline tells what happened. That's an action. Okay, and when you have an action, you need a verb to talk about what happened. If you just have a noun or a noun phrase, that's a label or maybe a title, but it's not actually a headline. A headline tells you something. A headline is a complete sentence. Something happened. That's the headline. And so you do need a verb for that. You also need to be interesting and engaging. And don't force it, okay? No puns, no tired cliches, no wordplay on people's names. And this picture here is an example from a file that I keep that I call the Oh My file, okay? And because we're in Kansas, I'm sure you've all seen The Wizard of Oz, when they're talking about lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Okay, do not do this in a headline. Aliens, flying discs and sightings, oh my. Semicolons and colons and commas, oh my. Charts and graphs and stats, oh my. Okay, I have nearly 100 examples in this file of people who are using this in headlines. Please do not. Do not do that. It's old, it's tired. The Wizard of Oz came out like 80 years ago. So it's not fresh, it's not clever. Just please don't. But what you should do is ask yourself after you've written the headline, can I understand this? Is it accurate? Am I repeating a lie in the headline? Now, sometimes somebody is going to lie. Sometimes people repeat things that aren't true or say things that aren't true. Do not do this in a headline. Don't just quote somebody, so and so says blah, blah, blah. Well, they may have said it, so it's technically accurate, but what they said wasn't true. So don't put that in the headline because, again, most people aren't going to read the story. And if they only read the headline, they're going to come away with bad information, wrong information. So if for some reason the false claim that is made is newsworthy, then state in the headline that, so-and-so falsely claims blah, blah, blah. Okay, so don't actually just repeat the lie without any kind of context. You want to know, does it tell what's going on? What happened? Are you giving me some information here so I know, even if I don't read the story, the absolute bare bones of what's going on? And then think about this. Does it make you want to read the story? Is it interesting? Is it engaging? We have a hard enough time as it is getting people to, click on through and read the story. Let that headline help you do it. Pique someone's interest. Make it interesting. And this is easier for some stories than for other stories. I mean, any story about like taxes and budgets is going to be kind of, dense and numbery and maybe kind of boring. Then figure out what in that story is going to make your average reader care. Okay? Does it mean that interest rates on student loans are going up? Well, that affects your peer group. So maybe that's something that you could pull out. Other kinds of things. Ask it, how does this affect people who are in my audience, and take it from that angle to make it a little bit more interesting. Okay, let's take a look at, just some names that we have for parts of a headline. And so I've got an online headline here and an old-timey print headline here. You have these little thingies here that some places call a label and some places call a kicker. That is just a little thing that is going to help give a little extra bit of information without actually telling the story. So in the case of this story here, it's just saying, okay, we're in Hong Kong. All right, so that's just helping people understand that this is, out of there. This exclusive, nobody else has this, but we do. Not that that really matters a whole lot anymore, but people do that. Okay, so this here is your main headline. All right. Sometimes it's short, like this one. Sometimes it's longer, like this one, because this one is online. So you can get a little bit more information. With a print headline, you have to make it fit. It's got to fit in that space. That can be really tricky sometimes, but that's actually a really good skill to have. So you're going to write some headlines sort of like you were going to write for print, even though most of you will probably not work in print. It's a good skill to be able to think about words and think about sentence structure and put things together in a really tight space, because you will have to do that sometimes. Even if you're not working in print, you have a limited amount of space sometimes, and it's a whole lot less than a tweet. So you're going to have to be very economical with your choice of words. Okay, sometimes then you have another little headline under the big headline that's going to tell you a little bit more about the story. So a lot of times that's called either a subhead or a deck head. That's like a secondary headline that's going to give a little bit more information. Online, we tend to have summaries instead. So we give a couple of sentences that are going to tell, again, a little bit more about the story so that people can either get a little bit more context or decide to go ahead and click through and read the rest of it. Okay. So if you hear about, a kicker or a label, it's that little thing above. A deck head or a subhead is going to be the extra little headline below here. Summaries are just little shorty little paragraphs that come after the headline and help tell the story. Okay, with print, notice how these headlines look. Okay, they fit in the space and they fill up the space. Okay, so they're actually going pretty close to the edge here. They're not leaving a lot of extra empty white space there. Okay, and that's pretty typical for print headlines. And sometimes, look, you get a subhead or a deck head here, and sometimes you don't. Okay, and these are they're tricky ones to write because it's kind of skinny and you have to choose your words sort of carefully. But notice you could get an awful lot of information in like 6 or 7 words. So, you just have to kind of think about it. Think about it kind of like a puzzle. You're sort of like, it's almost like Tetris. You're getting words that are the right width in there that's telling the story. And it can be kind of fun. You get to be a little bit creative here. This is probably the part of editing where you get to be the most creative. Online headlines don't have quite so many physical constraints. What you want to do with an online headline is keep it clear and concise. All right. So easy to understand. Concise still just means don't use more words than you need to. You have more space online, but you don't want to make it too long because it'll cut off on a lot of places where you might see it. Like if someone shares it on social, maybe if it's going through like a news alert or an email newsletter, the headline's going to cut off. So don't go nuts with the length of the headline, even though you have a little bit more space. But also no puns in online headlines. They really don't translate very well. There's no context. People are going to be like, what? And that is not the reaction that you want. What you do want is a location, okay? Because now we can read news from anywhere. So it's really, really important to put a location in your online headlines so that people know, oh, this is in Lawrence, Kansas, okay? And the location is part of the keywords, okay? And the keywords are basically the topic words of the story. These are what you would plug in if you were searching for a story about a particular news event, okay? And this can be people using Google, or this can be, bots and aggregation apps that sort of automatically crawl around the web looking for stories on a particular topic or from a particular place, okay? Like if anybody uses Newsbreak app, this is one of those. It goes around and it sort of automatically grabs stories by keywords and then serves them up to you. If you say, oh, I want all stories about, Lawrence, Kansas, and University of Kansas, KU, then it will serve up stories about Lawrence, Kansas, and KU in your newsfeed on that app. But, your parents may want it about their hometown and maybe their favorite sports team or, whatever topic they're interested in. It's going to look different even though they're using the same app. That is what an aggregation app does, and it needs keywords to work. Okay, so here is a good example of using this in an online headline. So we have a protest, okay, we have a location, all right. Now, if this were going just in, say, a newspaper in Seattle, they wouldn't have to say Seattle's. But because this is going out nationwide, we do have to say Seattle's. Because if people see Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, I'm going to think it's Washington, D.C., but it isn't. It's Seattle, because they have a Capitol Hill too. Okay, and so me sitting here in Kansas, I'm going to go, oh, this is not out of Washington, D.C., this is out of Seattle. Okay, and so we've got violent, we've got peaceful, we've got Seattle. Those are maybe some words that people might be searching for. People might be searching for just Seattle protests, and they're right there. Okay. This is from the Daily Mail, which is a British sort of tabloid. This is, you really don't want a headline to be this long. This is funny also because it's about the Westboro Baptist Church, and it's like, really, this whole story is just weird. But now that I've read the headline, I don't need to really read anymore. I kind of know the whole story. Like, okay, I think I don't need to know any more than this about that. So sometimes if you blow the whole story in the headline, people are never going to click it. So be careful about that, because it may cut off, but then it also may just be like, okay, I don't need to read any more about this. Okay, a couple notes about formatting. An Upstyle headline is this kind, and what this means is that like every big word in the headline is capitalized, all right? Some publications have Upstyle headlines. This is a Downstyle headline, which means only the first word of the sentence is capitalized and any proper name would be in there. AP style is Downstyle. So use Downstyle headlines in this class. Do not capitalize every word in the headline. Only the first word and any name that might be in there. Okay, so do it this way. And it's not like one is right and one is wrong, but this can cause confusion. This was a headline just over the weekend about Ivanka Trump, her graduation speech getting canceled by Wichita State University, okay? But it says Kansas University, which, as you know, KU, Lots of people do call it Kansas University still. Because this is an Upstyle headline, it's really misleading. Okay, this should be, if this was lower, 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 and again, she's a name, so you leave her uppercase. Okay, but yeah, Downstyle headlines in this case would have been a whole lot more clear. Where they meant a university in Kansas rather than the University of Kansas here. So careful with that. Also, you can drop a and the if you want to. You can drop linking verbs when you can. Use them when you need them for clarity. Okay? Don't break a word over 2 lines. That means do not put hyphens in there and do it that way. And then you don't need to put a period at the end either. Okay? Yes, it should be a complete sentence, but it is also a headline, and headlines do not get periods at the end. So just remember that. And we'll talk a little bit more about what headlines are supposed to do in the next video.